definition.
Nice.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stigma Free Society's Facebook, YouTube live event. Don't just survive, thrive. I am Daniel Toe with the Surrey School District. And yes, there's a doctor in front of my name, but that's really only good for plane reservations and hotel reservations. They only upgrade you if you have a doctor in front of your name, apparently. I'm really glad to be here. I'm really glad to have my colleague and friend, Sally-Ann Ambrosio, on here. She's a school psychologist, and we'll be talking to her today about just parental stress and about school and about some of the work that she does in our school district. I am waiting for some viewers to come on. I hope that Maddie eventually comes on from the Stigma Free and other people. I'm going to turn to the comments. If you have any live comments that you want to make, please post them in the YouTube or the Facebook chat, and we can definitely answer those questions for you. And again, really happy to have Sally-Ann on here. Also want to comment that we do both work for the Surrey School District on the shared traditional territories of the Kwantlen, Sami-Almu, Coast Salish, and Katzie First Nation. Sally, you almost had to give me another First Nation, like the Katzie First Nation. We're so proud to work with our Aboriginal communities and Indigenous communities on promoting education to students. Here's all my contact information, but again, full disclosure that while we're broadcasting for the Stigma Free Society and on their Facebook and YouTube, we also represent, as I do every time I broadcast here, the Surrey School District. So that disclaimer for all of you. This will also be available on the Surrey School District's YouTube mental health YouTube channel. So if you don't see it live on the Stigma Free YouTube or Facebook channels, you can also tune into any of their channels or ours to catch this interview. So today, again, very happy and proud to have Sally-Ann Ambrosio, certified school psychologist, here with me to talk about school and parents and stress. But I really want to start with her talking about her own story, because I think, life experience and shared experience is actually the best experience for the work that we do. And I know that as parents, I'm a parent of two young kids, and I do have a doctor in front of my name, but often I feel that, am I adequate? Am I able to deal with some of the stresses that they go through in school and in life? And I just want you to share your story. You are a school psychologist. You have a lot of education behind you, and talk about some of the things that you have to deal with in your family, with your kids and with maybe yourself, in terms of dealing with stress, and how you're able to get through some of those things. Were you magically able to just do all of it because you are a school psychologist?
Yeah,
you know everything. Yeah, of course.
Of course. It came with my master's degree. No, that's not actually a thing ever.
Yeah.
So I have been a school psychologist in this district since September of 1998. So this is my second century in the school district. And I was not a mom when I started. And in fact, so my life has always been about other people's kids. And I actually didn't officially become a stepmom until 5 years ago. So my kids were teenagers when I met them, when I started dating their dad, and they're now in their 20s. And it's a really different thing. It's a really, really different thing. But something that's always been very clear in my head and in my life is that there's no such thing as other people's kids. There's no such thing. They're all our kids collectively, right? But what I've learned about as I've become a stepmother and become really involved, more and more involved in the lives of my kids, is that the reason that it sometimes feels really hard is because it's just really hard. The reason that COVID has seemed really hard, and we're coming up to a year now.
Yeah.
A year. I heard it referred to today as the paniversary. So we're coming up to the
There's a term for that now, a paniversary. Oh my goodness, I don't want one of those. I only want one.
Pandemic anniversary, isn't that? It's kind of awesome and it's kind of terrible all at the same time. That it's the story about you can boil a frog, you put a frog in water and slowly raise the temperature and slowly boil them. That's really what's been happening to all of us in the past year.
Yeah.
And certainly when, before I was a stepmom, before I, as I was learning and knowing better, when I started, it was really easy to be, to think I was the expert. The longer I've been doing this, the more I realize that I'm kind of not. And that, yeah, we're living in really challenging times.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff is happening for everyone. I know that in my family, we've been largely unscathed, like I clearly still working. I've been able to work. My husband's been working. We've been working from home a lot. But that's really kind of, as much as it's been challenging, it's also very much a gift. I know people who have been sick. I know people who have lost people during the pandemic, either from COVID or from for other reasons. But it hasn't really swung super close to my circle. So I feel very grateful that that's the case. But still there are certainly challenges. As you alluded to before, one of my children has struggles with mental illness.
Okay.
And all of the things that we all kind of lost as COVID started and still haven't regained because of the restrictions. They had a huge impact on her. They had a huge impact on us, right? And so there was a significant adjustment period that had to happen that wasn't always easy.
Well, how did you deal with it? Again, like, a lot of, I think we were mentioning before we went on live, was that, parents feel sometimes inadequate to deal with some of their kids' mental health problems. And you're a school psychologist. It must have been peachy and happy for you. It must have been easy. Maybe talk about some of those things that you had to navigate through while dealing with those things.
Well, I think the thing to remember is that when we talk about the mental health challenges of our kids, it's not them, really. It's not just them. It's actually us. It's actually all of us. So I think what helped a lot for us is approaching it as a family, right? Is not just isolating it over there, really, as a my child problem. It's a family issue, and finding some commonalities between what she was experiencing and what we were experiencing as her parents was really, really important, right? Not to minimize her experience because it's different from mine, but but just so we were all included in it, right?
Right.
Because then we could work on it together too, which was important. And it's all of it. It's really all the stuff that you hear all the time about, just being in the moment and dealing with it. Heartbeat to heartbeat, right? One breath at a time. If a day at a time is too much, then one breath at a time is how you do it, right?
Yeah.
Like, because sometimes it's just about getting through the hour.
Well, I like that notion of togetherness, right? Because I think that a lot of times when our kids struggle, we try and give them space, especially as teenagers, but we end up not really dealing with things together. But I think that that's the idea of family. Even when our kids don't want that family, can bring them out of it. I don't know if you have experienced that yourself, right?
So, yeah, it's definitely a challenging balance, right? It's a delicate dance, and a lot of the work isn't the stuff that you do in the moment. It's the stuff that you do every day. It's the stuff that you do all the time. It's when things are difficult. For my daughter, for example, when things are difficult, sometimes they get so difficult that that she just kind of locks down, right? Yeah. Because it's all too much. It's all too much, and then I have to give her space because it's just that's all she can handle. But I know that I've built a relationship with her such that she knows I'm her person.
Yeah.
And that when there's a little crack that lets the light in, she'll come to me because she trusts me. She knows that she can just be however she needs to be in that moment, right? Okay. So yeah, there's no. I wish there were a silver bullet. No, I wish there was. I wish there was a thing that I could tell you to do, like that I could tell parents to do. I wish there was a thing that I could tell me to do, frankly, but really that's what it is. It's being, it's what I like to refer to as the soft place to land. I like that. Yeah. It's just building that trust that I will always be her soft place to land. So she doesn't need to do anything to make me feel okay about her not feeling okay, right? Yeah. And that when her own personal recovery starts to happen, she can come to me and we can walk out of it together. Or that when it gets really hard, she can say to me, it's too, like I've used up all of my resources. I simply can't. And then we'll address it and attack it together. Right?
So let's move from your life experience to translate that to kids in our district and kids that you deal with every day who are struggling with those things, also with learning, and right. What I've noticed in the work that we do together is that sometimes parents are at a loss of why the child is struggling with learning, and there's multiple reasons for that, and when you meet with families, what are typical complaints that you hear about, like, oh, my child's not at the place I want them to be. Can you do a assessment, or can you do XYZ to help them get there? What are some things that parents say to you, and what are some advice that you give them to help their struggling learner? Other with the addition of that connectedness, right? Because I think if there's that connectedness, it's a lot easier for the parent to interact with the child.
Right. Well, really that's the key, right? Is the thing that I say to my teams, the thing that I say in all of my schools is you need to connect before you can correct, right? Yeah. At home, at school.
I like that, connect before correct. I should put that on the slide. I love it. Yeah.
It's a good one, right? Yeah, it's one of my faves. And it's true, like, and especially now, I mean, we're, as much as there have been challenges about what's happening in schools and worries about what's happening in schools, we've been really lucky that we've been in our schools, that our students have been able to come to school, even though a number of them have chosen the blended program, right? Like learning is still happening, but learning is still happening in a pandemic, right?
That's right. I think people forget that, right?
Well, but part of that is because we've been for a year now, we've been talking about this new normal, right?
Yeah.
It's not normal.
No, totally not.
Even though it's been a year, it's still not normal, right? And so we're all, like I said, little frogs in increasingly boiling water. And so we can't treat this time like it's the same as every other time. Like, I know that this year, certainly last year, from March after spring break to the end of the year, schooling was kind of happening, but I think we did a pretty good job, but we as educators, but we really made it up on the fly, right? Yeah. We adapted very, very quickly. To the credit of our teachers and our teams, my goodness.
Of course.
But but we cobbled stuff together. So learning was not equitable for everyone. And the capacity for kids to learn during that time was not equitable. So you can't hope to have the same amount of learning happen in that amount of time, like it's regular school time. Everything is happening slower, right? Everything needs a little more time, a little more patience, a little more grace, really, than it normally would. And so, I understand the worries of parents that, that their kids have missed a bunch of schooling, have missed time. But one, everybody has.
Yep.
So the same thing is happening to everyone. And there's no, you can't really make it up. Ideally, what we do, and the philosophy of learning in our whole district, is really to meet kids where they're at and just to take them forward, whatever that is, one step at a time. And like I said, that's happening for everyone. So I know that people will often ask for me or people like me to do an assessment to find out where the problem is. Well, the problem that what that does is it makes it a within child problem, right?
Right.
To assess a child and find out where they are, that doesn't actually address the environmental, issue.
Can you quantify that a bit more? Because we get asked that a lot. You and I get asked that a lot, right? Oh, just give them a test and they'll be able to, you'll be able to fix all their problems. Give them a psychoed, give them an assessment, and we'll be able to fix all the problems because we'll know exactly what the problem is. But sometimes the test is just a small part of a larger context problem, right?
Okay, I'll give you my favorite analogy for this. My favorite analogy for this is psychoeducational assessment is an X-ray, not a cast. Okay.
My wife's an X-ray tech. I get that. Yeah.
Well, there's no magic. There's no magic in the assessment. There's no magic in an X-ray. I mean, scientifically there kind of is, but that's a whole other issue. You know what I mean? It's a picture. Yeah. It's a picture. If you injured yourself and you hurt your leg and you wanted to know what was going on, right? If you thought the leg was broken, you would have an X-ray. You would have an X-ray to find out where the break was, so you would know where to set the cast. Okay.
Right.
Well, if that's a psychoeducational assessment, then that's what we do with learning. However, what else would you do? Right? When there's injury, would you make the child continue to run on that leg that's injured? No, you'd slow down what they were doing, right? And with learning, it's like, well, you wouldn't push them or more accurately pull them through a curriculum that they clearly couldn't do on a broken, the broken leg analogy, right? You'd slow it down. You would do all kinds of things to compensate for that problem. You would elevate it, you'd ice it, all of it, wrap it, splint it, and we should do that with learning too. And you don't need the X-ray in order to do that, right?
That's right.
And then, for the cast, that's really where the learning support team comes into play. Those teachers, those specialist teachers who we are so grateful to have in our schools, Absolutely. The work that they do is determining what that cast is made out of, right?
Right.
And they build the cast around the break, and they support the child through the educational rehab that goes on while these things heal, while they help these problems, these breaks in learning heal. And the most important thing that they do is they know when to take it off, right? And so some of the things that I'm concerned, some of the things that I will see is that people want to, keep the educational cast on for kids, whether it's more eating support, whether it's more LST, whether it's more adaptations forever. And we all know what happens when you leave a cast on a broken limb, right? Eventually, yes, Yes, the muscles atrophy. The healing doesn't actually happen. The bone might heal, but the the strength, the learning that happens around it that makes you independent, that makes it so you can walk, doesn't actually happen if all you're doing is, supporting and like our job really is to make kids independent of us, not dependent of us, right?
Yes.
Honestly, if I do my job right, if we do our jobs right as parents, our kids won't need us.
That's right. That's right.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the goal.
yesterday, it was a decent day, so we walked our kids to school, and
Mm-hmm.
because we're training, because Maddie, my daughter, is grade 4, so she's 9, 10, and my son's kindergarten, so grade 5. So we're walking together, but all of a sudden you see Maddie, because we want her to walk him to school like next year herself, because we're like 2 blocks from school.
Yeah.
She walks way ahead because she's like way taller. He's just like, trying to run, right? And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like she doesn't know how to walk him to school. Like if we left them to their own devices, she'd be at school. He'd still be like, I can't cross Caribou Road, right? Like, and I think
Yes.
that our goal is to
Yes.
train her to be able to walk him to school and
Yeah.
for him to know how to get to school in case she loses her. And
Right.
likewise, right, with education, do we want our kids relying on all of the supports for the rest of their life, or do we
Yeah.
want them to grow into independence? And I think a lot of parents struggle with like, I just want my kid to be successful, whatever it takes. But sometimes it takes a bit of struggle to get to the
No,
place of success.
absolutely. Absolutely. So it's like, yeah. So I love how you said that, you need to teach her how to walk him to school. So you need to
Yes,
teach her how to be that support for him. But he also needs to learn the way,
that's
which
right.
is different from him learning how to walk to school with her, right?
That's
Because then
right.
she's just his GPS,
That's right. That's right.
right?
We need more than a
I'm
GPS. Yeah.
I'm really great at following my GPS. I love her. She's my favorite travel companion. But, but if I want to learn a route, I can't rely on it the whole time.
Yeah.
And so it's much like that with our kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So both of those things are in place. So, and back to now with parents being stressed about what their kids should be learning and haven't learned and all of those things.
Yeah.
The tendency is to push, pull, and drag them through, right? The stuff that we think that they're supposed to learn so they catch up.
Yeah.
They're not. That's not actually how they catch up. That's how they get through curriculum.
Yes.
Which is not the same. It's not the same as learning, right?
No,
Following my
I was just gonna
GPS
say that, yeah.
everywhere will get me where I want to go. It doesn't teach me how to get there on my own.
That's right.
So really, when parents want assessments, they want help. Help with their kids' learning. And my recommendation often makes people look at me funny, like I don't know what I'm talking about, but I actually do. My recommendation is to not push them so far into the thing that they don't know and have to be learning next. My recommendation is actually to back it up. That the work that they should be doing with their kids is solidifying stuff that they've already learned to the point of mastery, to the point where it lives in them and they own it.
Build
right?
confidence, right?
Yeah. Autonomy, right? Yeah. Intellectual, educational autonomy, as well as personal autonomy, right?
Yeah. I see Carla Walsh washing, and it's funny. We talked, and it's now 24 minutes. But Carla's washing, and she loves your analogy, and we work with Carla. We love working with Carla. So thank you for watching, Carla, and anybody else who's watching or will watch later. Appreciate you guys all watching. But if I were to end the last 5 minutes, because again, I could talk to Sally forever. She works with me, and I love Sally. But if you were to give any parents like 3 tips that on how to help their struggling students through COVID, through this pandemic, and especially through their struggles with learning. What would those 3 tips, or maybe it's just 2, however many tips you want to give, be for the parents to help their struggling kids?
The first thing, the most important thing that you should do with your kids is, if they are on fire, put them out.
Yes.
That's the most important thing. After that, pretty much everything you're doing is fine.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything you're doing is fine. Like, love them.
Yeah.
Don't freak out. It's going to be okay. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. Connect before you correct, right? Just be a family together. Let them know that they don't have to be perfect. Let them know that even though you probably are perfect, that sometimes you're not. That, yeah, the thing I want people to remember is the goal is progress, not perfection. Whether that's with parenting or that's with learning, that's the goal. Okay. Yeah, and if there's stuff you want them to be able to do, model it, right? Model being curious about things. Model reading for pleasure.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to find time to do that, but model that with them, right? Model just, exploring the world and model not knowing stuff and figuring it out together. Right?
Yeah.
Honestly, if they're on fire, put them out. Seriously.
Yeah, that plus the last one, those are two of the best advice I think. If your kid's in trouble, save them, put out the fire. Yeah. But the modeling, I think I will agree and sort of end this broadcast with you in saying that modeling is so important. Like I mentioned two weeks ago that the best thing that happened to me was my Apple Watch breaking, because it's so easy to be like the 1950s version of the family. Mom and dad come home. They sit in front of the TV and go, kids, go do your homework. Kids, do your chores. Kids, do this. While we're sitting there with like a TV dinner, just like eating pork or something, right? Like that's easy to do. But the best thing that happened to me was my Apple Watch breaking and me not being distracted, building Lego. Like you saw a post that I made, like building Legos with my kids, right? And spending time. It's hard for me to tell them to play if I won't play with them.
Yes.
It's hard for me to tell them to do their homework when they see me doing nothing. It's hard for me to tell them to clean their rooms when I'm not cleaning, or when, and modeling that and spending time as a family. I'm just basically summarizing all your summary, spending time with them as a family, connecting with our kids, and being there to put out their fire. I think not only if they're on fire, put them out, but they need to see you being there to put out their fire. That's how they learn to trust you. Right. Yeah. That's how your kids trust you, is if you're there for them. And so, I know it's hard. COVID times are hard. People have lost their jobs. Some people are working 3 jobs. But I think that there is always an opportunity and time to spend with your family, whatever that looks like for your family. And that type of connection can help you guys through your personal struggles, but also help you through some of these academic struggles. Final word to you on helping kids succeed in learning through COVID. You have 1 minute.
Oh,
go,
my
Sally.
Goodness. Yeah, I don't mean to sound like that it's easy, but it is simple.
Yeah. Simple's not always easy.
No. Simple is often really hard, really hard. But it's really, don't be so hard on yourselves. And love them. Just love them.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing a good job. Y'all are doing a good job. I promise you. You're doing a good job. The fact that you're watching this and you're interested and that you're curious about this means that you're doing a great job. Trust me. Yeah. So thank you from the education system, from the Surrey School District. Thank you for trusting us with your kids. Thank you for allowing us to do the work that we do to be part of the village that raises your children.
And that's with that, thank you, Sally. I'm going to take off this other branding so it's not twice. But thank you so much. And if you have any questions for myself, or I guess for Sally, because she works with me, email me or tweet me or text me. Go to my blog. I'm definitely happy to answer any of your questions. I do appreciate that many of you are watching afterwards. So don't forget, don't worry, email is also timeless. You email me and I'll eventually get it and reply to you, or text me or tweet me. Sally, thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. I need to find a way to play this song so we can go out on the same song. But thank you all for watching. This has been the Stigma Free Society's Facebook, YouTube Live. Don't forget to go visit Stigma Free Society, their website for their Stigma Free Toolkit, especially their COVID-19 toolkit, but also their mental health toolkit as well. Thank you so much, everybody. And I forgot to mention, Sally, in April, the Stigma Free Society is going to be doing 3 sessions for the Surrey School District students, grade 5 to 7, 8 to 9, and 10, 11, 12, through the 3 weeks in April. More information is coming out soon. It'll be during a conference that teachers can play in class or play afterwards. So it's going to be really great. We're going to thank the Stigma Free Society for supporting our school district and putting on our Balancing Our Minds with the Stigma Free Society conference in April. So thank you for that, Stigma Free Society. Everyone go visit their site. They're awesome. And Sally, thank you again. I'll play
Thank
you
you.
out to Be Who You Are by Stefan Kurtenbach. The only guest that danced with me. So good.